The Dowry. Guy de Maupassan. No one in Butigny batted an eye upon hearing of Simon Lieberman's marriage to Mademoiselle Jean Courtier. Lieberman had just purchased the notary practice of Monsieur Papillon. For such a transaction, a substantial sum was naturally required, and Mademoiselle Courtier happened to possess 300,000 francs in cash, in banknotes and bearer securities. Lieberman was a handsome man with a certain flair, the flair of a notary, provincial to be sure, but flair nonetheless, and that was a rare commodity in Butigny. As for Mademoiselle Courtier, she was renowned for her freshness and grace, albeit a little unrefined, but overall, she was a lovely girl, the object of universal admiration and desire. Their wedding turned all of Butigny upside down. Everyone was in raptures over the newlyweds. The couple, however, hastened to conceal their happiness within the shelter of their marital nest, deciding, after a few days of seclusion, to simply make a short trip to Paris. This seclusion proved delightful. From the very first hours, Lieberman displayed astonishing sensitivity, delicacy, and skill in his treatment of his young wife. His motto was, "Knowing how to bide one's time is the surest path to the goal." He managed to be both patient and resolute. His success was swift and complete. Within 4 days, Madame Lieberman was simply adoring her husband. She could no longer do without him. She needed to have him by her side all day, to caress him, cover him with kisses, tug at his hands, his beard, his nose, and so on. Sitting on his lap and holding him by the ears, she would say, "Open your mouth and close your eyes." He would trustingly open his mouth, close his eyelids, and receive an exquisitely tender, a dizzyingly long kiss that sent shivers down his spine. He, too, now found himself lacking in caresses, lacking lips, lacking hands, lacking his entire being to express his feelings to his wife from morning till evening and from evening till morning. When the first week had passed, he said to his young companion, "If you like, let's dash off to Paris on Tuesday. We'll act like lovers, not like a dull married couple. We'll go to restaurants, theaters, music halls. We'll take the whole city by storm." She jumped for joy. "Oh, yes, yes. Let go as soon as possible." He added, "By the way, don't forget about our affairs. Tell your father to have the dowry ready. I'll take it with me and settle the account with Papillon in one go." "I'll tell him tomorrow morning," she replied. And he drew her close, resuming that tender game which had so captivated her over the past week. The following Tuesday, the father-in-law and mother-in-law saw their daughter and son-in-law off at the station as they departed for the capital. The father-in-law was worried. I assure you, carrying so much money in a portfolio is sheer recklessness. But the young notary merely smiled. "Don't trouble yourself, Papa. I'm used to it. You understand, in my profession, one sometimes has to have nearly 1 million on one's person. This way, we'll at least avoid a lot of formalities and delays." "Don't worry," the station master shouted. "Passengers for Paris. All aboard." They rushed into a carriage where 2 elderly ladies were already seated. Lieberman whispered in his wife's ear, "What a nuisance. I won't be able to have a smoke." She whispered back, barely audibly, "I'm sorry too, but for a very different reason." The train whistled and set off. The journey took an hour, but the couple spoke little, as the old ladies were not asleep. As soon as they found themselves on the square outside the Gare Saint-Lazare, Lieberman said to his wife, "If you like, my dear, let's first go to the boulevard for breakfast, and then we can come back at our leisure for the luggage and go to the hotel." She agreed immediately. "Of course, let's have breakfast in a restaurant." "Is it far?" "Yes, rather far, but we can take an omnibus." She was surprised. "Why not take a phaeton?" He chided her playfully. "Is that how we economize? A phaeton for 5 minutes at 6 sous a minute. What a lavish spirit you are." "You're right," she said, somewhat abashed. A large omnibus, drawn by 3 horses, was approaching. Lieberman yelled, "Conductor! Hey, conductor!" The heavy carriage halted, and the young notary, helping his wife in, said to her hurriedly, "Get inside, I'll climb up top. At least I can smoke a cigarette before breakfast." She had no time to answer. The conductor took her by the arm, helped her onto the step, pushed her inside, and she, bewildered, collapsed onto a bench, staring in confusion through the rear window at her husband's feet as he clambered onto the Imperial. Then she sat frozen between a fat gentleman, who smelled of tobacco, and an old woman, who smelled of dog. The other passengers sitting in silent rows, a shopkeeper, a working woman, an infantry sergeant, a gentleman with gold-rimmed spectacles and a silk top hat with enormous brims curved like gutters, 2 sullen and important ladies whose entire demeanor seemed to say, "We are here, but we deserve better company," 2 nuns, a hatless girl, and an undertaker's mute. All resembled a collection of caricatures, a parade of grotesques, like a gallery of those comic clowns one shoots at a fairground. Stalls. Jolted by the omnibus, the passengers' heads jerked, their flabby cheeks quivered. The rumble of the wheels was intoxicating, and they all seemed half-witted and sleepy. The young woman felt oppressed. Why didn't he sit with me, she thought. A vague sadness tormented her. Really, he could have done without his cigarette. The nuns signaled to stop and then got out one after the other, leaving behind a musty smell of old skirts. They moved on, then stopped again. A flushed, breathless cook got in. She sat down and placed a basket of groceries on her knees. The omnibus filled with the smell of kitchen scraps. "This is much further than I thought," Jean mused. The mute got out, replaced by a coachman who smelled of the stables. The hatless girl was replaced by a messenger boy, whose feet smelled of sweat. The notary's wife began to feel unwell. She was nauseous and on the verge of tears, without knowing why. A few more people got off, a few got on. The omnibus kept rolling along endless streets, stopping at its designated spots, moving on. How far it is, Jean thought. I hope he doesn't miss our stop, that he hasn't fallen asleep. He's been so tired lately. Gradually, all the passengers disembarked. She was left alone, completely alone. The conductor barked, "Vaugirard." As she didn't move, he repeated, "Vaugirard." She looked at him, realizing the call was for her, since there was no one else left. The conductor said for the 3rd time, "Vaugirard." Then she asked, "Where are we?" He answered angrily, "At Vaugirard, damn it. I've called it 20 times already." "Is it far from the boulevard?" she asked. "Which boulevard?" "Why, the Boulevard des Italiens. Passed it long ago." "Oh, please tell my husband that." "Your husband? Where is he?" "On the Imperial." "On the Imperial? There's been no one up there for ages." She clasped her hands. "What do you mean? It can't be. He got on with me. Have a proper look. He must be there." The conductor became familiar. "Now then, little lady, that's enough chatter. 1 lost, 10 more to be found. Off you go. The ride's over. You'll find a new one on the street." Tears welled in her eyes. She insisted, "You're mistaken, I assure you." He had a large portfolio under his arm. The conductor guffawed. "A large portfolio? All right." He got off by the Madeleine. "I must say, he's shaken you off neatly." Ho, ho, ho. The carriage stopped. She got out and instinctively, involuntarily, glanced up at the roof of the omnibus. It was empty. She burst into loud sobs and, without thinking that she could be seen and heard, moaned, "What will become of me now?" An inspector came over. "What's the matter?" The conductor replied with a sneer. "This lady's husband gave her the slip on the way." "All right, no matter," said the other. "Mind your business." And he walked away. She wandered off aimlessly, stunned and terrified. She couldn't comprehend what had happened to her. Where should she go? What should she do? What had happened to him? How could one explain such carelessness, such forgetfulness, such a misunderstanding, such incredible absent-mindedness? She had 2 francs in her pocket. Whom could she turn to? And suddenly she remembered her cousin Beryl, a chief clerk at the Naval Ministry. It was just enough for a phaeton, and she told the driver to take her to her cousin's. She found him just at his doorstep. He was on his way to the office. Just like Lieberman, he carried a bulky portfolio under his arm. She jumped out of the carriage. "Henri," she exclaimed. He stopped, perplexed. "Jean, here, alone. What's wrong? Where have you come from?" Her eyes were filled with tears. She stammered, "My husband is lost." "Lost? Where?" "Just now, in an omnibus." "In an omnibus? Oh!" And, sobbing, she told him everything. He listened thoughtfully, then asked, "Was he in his right mind this morning?" "Yes." "I see. Did he have a lot of money on him?" "Yes. He was carrying my dowry with him." "Your dowry?" "All of it. All of it, to pay for the practice." "Well, my dear cousin, it means your husband is currently speeding towards Belgium." She muttered, still not understanding. "My husband? What did you say?" "I said he has stolen your capital. That's all." She barely managed to utter, gasping for breath. You mean, he's a scoundrel?" Beside herself with despair, she fell against her cousin's waistcoat and burst into tears. Passers-by stopped to stare at them. Gently, he guided her into the entrance and, supporting her by the waist, helped her upstairs. When the astonished maid opened the door, he instructed her, "Sophie, run to the restaurant and bring breakfast for 2. I won't be going to the office today."